Good evening. BBC London has learned that more than 1 in 3 of the capital's councils are unlawfully housing homeless families in bed and breakfast accommodation. And figures show more than half of the city's local authorities are sending people out of London because of a housing shortage. Well, by law, councils mustn't keep children in a B&B for more than the government-imposed maximum of 6 weeks. But as our political correspondent Carl Mercer reports, many authorities are falling foul of their own legal obligations.
Home now for Amanda and her 1-year-old daughter is this shared flat with a friend. It's not exactly a palace.
I sleep there, my daughter sleeps here, that's my pillow. My friend sleeps there and her 3-year-old sleeps there.
But cramped as it is, this flat, she says, is better than the bed and breakfast hotel she was put in by her local council.
I was crying because I was really depressed because I feel like I'm failing her as a parent. Just really hard just being in a room. It just makes you feel really down being in them places. Any mum, any parent would feel the same, that even kids in there don't even like being in there. So if a kid doesn't like being in there, how's a mum feeling?
The law says councils can only put people like Amanda in B&B for 6 weeks. She was there for 9 before she left, and is part of a growing problem for London's councils, forced to use B&Bs to house people because of a lack of space in the private rented sector.
2 years ago, if we were having this interview just 2 and a bit years ago, I could have happily told you that we had no families in bed and breakfast. As at today, we've got, I think it's 145 families in bed and breakfast, and I think, disgracefully, we've actually got today 76 families with children in bed and breakfast who have been there over 6 weeks. So technically, or actually not technically, legally, we are acting outside the law.
In fact, a dozen London councils told BBC London they were breaking the law by keeping families in B&B for more than 6 weeks. Topping the list was Westminster with 134 cases, followed by Barking and Dagenham, then Hammersmith and Fulham, Hounslow and then Ealing. In total, close to 400 families have been in B&B longer than the legal limit.
There was no dispute about this at all. Local authorities who have homeless applicants with children in bed and breakfast for more than 6 weeks are breaking the law. That's it. We don't have to say, what's your opinion on this? If we went to court, we would get an injunction. The point is we shouldn't have to be telling them this. It shouldn't be down to us to have to enforce this.
Outside of central London, Barking and Dagenham has the highest number of families in B&Bs for more than 6 weeks. Its answer, a simple one: build more homes. This site will eventually provide part of the solution. Nearly 300 homes here, close to 1,000 planned across Barking and Dagenham. But the council says it's facing a housing crisis. That means it can't avoid using B&Bs for many people and will have to look outside the capital.
I genuinely think that we, in common with the other 32 London authorities, will be placing significant numbers of families outside of London to areas where rents are much lower. Now that's something that we're going to do with considerable regret because these are sort of life-changing decisions for families. So this isn't something that we're going to, go very lightly into. But frankly, there'll be no alternative to us.
Most of the councils we spoke to also said that in the future they'd be sending more families to temporary accommodation out of London. Already, people are housed in places like Birmingham, Northampton, Luton, Essex and Slough. Only 5 councils said they wouldn't send people out of the capital. Amanda and her daughter will stay in London, their council now looking for somewhere to put them. They won't be the last family, though, to go through the B&B system. Carl Mercer, BBC London News.
Well, a little earlier, our political editor Tim Donovan spoke to the Housing Minister Mark Prisk and began by asking him how he could justify the situation.
The law is very clear, and that is that it is not acceptable for families to be placed in bed and breakfasts except in exceptional circumstances, and indeed for no more than 6 weeks.
But where should they go then?
Well, what we're making sure is, first of all, we make the rules simpler. So, for example, we've just changed the rules so it's easier for councils now to move them out of temporary accommodation into settled accommodation, which is what we all want. Secondly, to make sure that we invest more, we put our 400 million to one side. Councils are now going to use that as a discretionary fund, very important. But the big picture is actually we need to build more homes.
But even in a borough like Barking and Dagenham, where rents are relatively low, you can see these families in bed and breakfast. And they're saying it's a perfect storm to which your policy has contributed.
But let's deal with the root issue here, and that is that, first of all, making sure that we have a growth in supply, not only owner-occupied, rented as well. Very important to expand the private rented sector. But secondly, to make sure that councils follow the laws. The vast majority of councils around the country are able to do this. Indeed, most in London are able to do this. We want to make sure those councils don't flout the law.
We can see that a third of them aren't able to do this, and you say they shouldn't flout the law. Where should they put these people?
Well, what they have said to us is make the rules simpler so we can transfer people into settled accommodation.
What is this settled accommodation, though? Where is this accommodation?
The accommodation is there. What you've got to bear in mind is that homelessness today is still lower than it's been for 28 of the last 30 years.
If it was there,
it's a problem.
If it was there, they'd be putting
people
people in this house, and they're saying there isn't the affordable housing. Just 400 affordable homes have been started in London this year.
Well, there is a problem. You're right to say that there is a problem. After all, for the last 20 or 30 years, we've built half the homes we need.
But on top of the housing benefit cap, which is already leading to hundreds of people having to move homes, you're now, in the autumn statement, cutting housing benefit in real terms, affecting thousands of more people.
Well, let's be very clear. At the moment, we have a situation in which some people who are living on benefits are actually able to afford properties that their neighbours who work cannot. That is not right. It's not fair.
And I've dealt with that. We know
with
you've introduced the cap, but now, which will make matters worse, you're reducing housing benefit for nearly everybody on housing benefit.
Well, as you know, housing benefit is going to rise by 1%, and that follows on significant improvements recently. Now, it's important to bear in mind...
With rents going up much higher.
It's important to bear in mind that actually, if you put that cap in place, it simply means that just like people who are working, people who are on benefits are going to have to make decisions about where they live. We've put in place a clear rule, which is that they must make sure that the property they choose is suitable. That includes the cost, but it also includes the distance.
Well, that's Housing Minister Mark Priss speaking to our political editor Tim Donovan a little earlier. Now, still to come, a royal